if you're going to start any sort of fitness challenge or weight loss challenge, 2 weeks before Halloween is really a bad time to do it. Hey everybody, happy Tuesday! I'm shooting this a little bit later in the day than I usually would because the morning has been crazy. Little baby Liam actually spiked a very tiny fever last night, only about 100 to 100.6, but when you're only 3.5 weeks old, that's actually still quite dangerous. So Michelle took him to urgent care and everything seems okay. They checked him for RSV, he didn't have that. They checked him for various things, he doesn't have the flu. So that's all well and good, but the doctor did prescribe him something to make sure that whatever he does have doesn't get worse. So this morning I kind of stayed home because Michelle didn't sleep at all last night, so I kind of stayed home to give her a couple hours to sleep before I began to work from home. And she mentioned that at some point during the day somebody would have to go get the prescription from the pharmacy, and I said, I'll go grab it. And I drive out there and come to find out that I had forgotten to put Liam on my insurance. Whoops. And actually, I was only 2 days away from not being able to do it, at least for another series of months, because when you have a life change event inside your insurance window, you get about 31 days, and we were at 29. So if you look at it in one way, it actually was kind of lucky that this happened so that I could get him on the insurance and everything's gonna be fine, and I was able to pick up his prescription and we're good to go. But yes, that led to a rather hectic morning, and for someone who deals with anxiety, it was a but I was able to kind of hold it down and just realize, taking everything little step by step, everything was going to get done. It just needed to do it one by one, and it was going to be fine. And that's where we are right now. But keeping with the themes that we started yesterday with Motivational Monday, Tuesdays are going to become Top 10 Tuesdays. This week, the Top 10 list is Top 10 books that I've read and still am in possession of. Because there are some books that I've read that I actually, for some reason or another, don't have them here in my library. But the ones that I do have, here are the top 10 in no particular order. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. Now yeah, this is kind of a young adult novel, but seriously, this is so good. And it's the beginning of an ongoing series. Hollow City follows this up, and then The Library of Souls is the third chapter, and that just came out. I don't have it yet. I'm really excited for it. So not only is the story awesome, but the pictures inside are so creepy and interesting. And actually, when you come to find out how the origin of the story happened, the origin of Ransom Riggs actually writing this, it really started with collecting those old photos. So check it out. Very worthwhile. Let Me In by John Lindquist. I don't know how to pronounce that middle name. Adjave? This is the book that the movie Let the Right One In is based on, the little tiny girl vampire. That movie was super good. This book is better. It goes way deeper, way darker into the storyline of what's going on in the characters, the little boy, the old man. It's really, really good, and sometimes almost uncomfortable because it goes so dark. Incredible book. If you're into horror, if you're into Stephen King, this is the one. It by Stephen King. Like I said, if you're into Stephen King, you could read that, or you could also read this. This was the first Stephen King book I ever read, although I did read Cycle of the Werewolf, but that's really short. That's almost of just like a novella, if even that length. That's more of a short story even. But this was the first full novel that I read by Stephen King. My mom was a huge fan of Stephen King, yeah, and I loved this book. And at the time, years and years ago when I was still in college, Stephen King was doing this thing where you could actually mail him 2 books per lifetime, and he would sign them and mail them back to you. And so this one, For Luke, Want a Balloon, Little Boy, awesome and creepy. Now bouncing into the nonfiction category, A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. In some schools, this is required reading, and honestly, it should be required reading in every school. And I'm not saying that because I think that we should just tear down the history that we've learned before. It's just that this provides a counterpoint to what we've been told in our history books, and it provides a lot of proof for those things. And it just helps people, especially young people, I think, develop the ability to critically think about stories, to critically think about the information that they're given, so that we don't just kind of devour everything that we're spoon-fed. This challenges everything you think you know about the history of our country, and it's worth reading. In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. Seriously, amazing, amazing book. So heartfelt and full of sorrow and pain and struggle. Or when you actually get to learn about what was going on in Truman Capote's life and the life of these criminals that he documents in this book, and what really happened, it's heart-wrenching. And the worst part being that Truman Capote never really got over writing this book. Once he finished it and he got all the fame for it, many people have said that he never got over the idea of what he did to get this book to where it is. The steps he took, the choices he made, they haunted him. From this point on, I don't think he ever finished another book worthwhile. check it out. Let's Pretend This Never Happened by Jenny Lawson. If you don't know who Jenny Lawson is, she's also known as the Blogess. She has a blog that is incredibly popular, she is incredibly funny, and she has given a voice to so many people who suffer from various mental and emotional and psychological disorders. She has taken the idea of what society considers crazy and made it not only normal, but fun, positive, and something that we can actually support within ourselves, instead of beating ourselves up for feeling like we're broken. It's hilarious in a way that only she could make it, and she just wrote another book, her sequel or follow-up to this, called Furiously Happy, which I don't have yet, I will get, and I'm sure it will be equally as good. Now, the last nonfiction book, The Joke's Over by Ralph Steadman. So Ralph Steadman was the artist that most people know as being connected to Hunter Thompson. When you think of Hunter Thompson's works and you think of the covers of his books, you think of the stuff from Fear and Loathing, and this style of artwork was Ralph. And Ralph's style before meeting Hunter Thompson was close to this, but not exactly like this. He developed this while with Hunter because of the experiences that he had with him. And this book documents the relationship between Ralph and Hunter in a way that you never would have expected. Ralph was with him from the moment that they started working together to the end of Hunter's life. And that might make you think that they were best friends, but it was really hard to be a best friend to Hunter Thompson because he was so manic. So in this book, you can read about the struggles that Ralph had. It's almost like a soap opera between these two, and sometimes it comes off like Ralph is playing the victim, but you also get to see that Ralph stands up for himself to Hunter, which very few people did. So if you like Hunter Thompson and you want to see some of the other parts of his history, check this out. Back over to the fiction side, Dune by Frank Herbert. There is no science fiction series as intricate as Dune. The only thing I can even think that's even close to this would be on the fantasy side, being the Lord of the Rings. Tolkien created such in-depth world for his characters, for the Shire and for Mordor and everything. In the science fiction side, Frank Herbert created that for Dune. He wrote an entire Bible just so he could have that for what his characters would read. The history of this universe is covered not only in these books, but he had so many novels, so many folders and folders and folders and binders full of information about this universe that after he died, his son and Frank Herbert's writing partner was able to actually come together and continue the series. Now, I have not read all the other ones, but this series, which is 6 books long, I have read and I enjoyed it thoroughly. Next, Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk. I love Chuck Palahniuk. I love his books. I read them voraciously. The minute they come out, I devour them. But out of all of his books, this one, it's my favorite, but for a very weird reason. It's my favorite because it affected me the deepest. This is the first book that I ever read that I had to put down because I thought I was going to throw up. It's very, very graphic. It's amazing in its depravity, but so almost realistic of how crazy people would get if they're all stuck in a building together. It's like a series of horrible events that have happened to all these different people that are told in kind of like vignettes, but they all are connected into this one major plot line. Yeah, if you really want to be affected, get Haunted. Now, while I said these weren't in any particular order, I did save this one specifically for last because if I had to pick my favorite book of all time, House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski. I've read this book twice. It's amazing, and it is a book that I think people either love or hate because it's written in such a spectacularly unique way that you either really get into it or you just say, I don't know what the hell is going on here and I'm just out. I loved it. When I was living up in Washington State and I was reading this for the first time, I actually had friends that came over the house to hang out with me and my roommate, and I was just like, yeah, you can hang out with the friends. I'm staying upstairs and I'm reading. Like, I just shunned people. I shunned social contact so that I could keep reading this book. So if you want something really beyond anything you've ever read before, House of Leaves, Mark Danielewski, amazing. And that's where I'm going to leave you guys today. Hope you all are either having or had an amazing Tuesday. Stay tuned for tomorrow, and as always, be good to each other.